Okay, so in this video, we're actually going to be looking at a few subtopics within the topic of understanding planetary alignment. And this video is going to be more of a broad sense as we go through this, okay? So we're going to be taking a look at how to read an ephemeris. And to read an ephemeris, we need to know the planets and the zodiac signs. So we'll be taking a look at those. We'll learn about the aspects, which will help when we actually read an ephemeris. I'll show you how to calculate the distance between two planets. And then we'll talk about ingressing and clusters to determine changes in trend. Now in this video, I won't actually go through and show you an example of a change in trend, purely because we'll take this as an informational video because you'll be able to refer back to this in the future when it comes to just looking at specific astro-based techniques, okay? So the first thing we'll do is start off with the planets. Because all this will build up into how to read an ephemeris. So we'll start off with the planets. We'll take a look at the planets, what they actually are, and then we'll take a look at the other topics. Okay, so let me just move this down to the other screen so that I can easily flow on from here. So first things first, let's take a look at the actual planets. So we've got the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and the Moon's north node. Obviously, you can say that we also have the Earth, which will be a planet, and you can also say that depending on which way we're looking at it, whether we're looking at from a heliocentric or a geocentric perspective, which I'll explain in a minute, we also have the Sun. So when we look at things from a geocentric perspective, we are looking at it from Earth being the center of the solar system. When we look at it from a heliocentric perspective, we look at it as the Sun being the center of the solar system, which is in fact the way it is. So it is, the Sun is in the center of the solar system. However, from a geocentric perspective, we want to know where the planets are in relation to the Earth, okay? Not so much in relation to the Sun. And that is why we often see things happen from a geocentric perspective. So we'll keep out the Earth and we'll keep out the Sun from now. Let's just go through these ones and take a look at how each one of these are influencing each other and also their cycles. So the Moon completes its orbit in around 27 to 29 days. It spends about 2.5 days in each of the zodiac signs. In astrology, the Moon's continuous state of change influences various aspects of life. It's been found that a 28-day cycle is in stock prices, 29.5-day cycle in the timing of birth of infants, and a 29.6-day cycle in global earthquake activity. Mercury orbits the Sun every 88 days, okay? Spends about 19 days in each sign from a geocentric perspective. Mercury is connected to commerce and what is on the minds of the market community. There are human activities that follow cycles similar to Mercury's. For example, the price of General Motors stock follows a 12.31 cycle. That's a weekly cycle. And the industrial stock prices have a 12.94 cycle, and also that's a weekly cycle. So that is the Mercury cycle, which is about 88 days, okay? Now, as we go through these, I want you to just keep an eye on or get an understanding of these daily cycles, okay? Because you'll see that these tend to pop up over and over again. In the future lesson, we'll break down Gann cycles and these cycles. Venus completes its orbit around the Sun in 225 days, spending an average of 24 to 46 days in one sign from a geocentric view. Venus is associated with value, including financial matters and contracts, okay? Mars completes its orbit in 687 days, or just under 2 years, spends roughly 60 days in a zodiac sign from a geocentric perspective. Jupiter takes 12 years to complete an orbit and spends roughly 11 to 13 months in each sign. Now, Jupiter is quite important because it brings expansion and optimism. So we'll look at that in the future. Saturn has an orbital period of 29.5 years, spending around 2.5 years in each sign. And unlike Jupiter, Saturn is actually associated with contraction and depression. So it's the exact opposite, okay? Uranus, it orbits the Sun every 84 years, spending 7 years in the zodiac sign. Uranus is often associated with unpredictability and disruption. Neptune takes 164.8 years to orbit the Sun, spending around 14 years in each sign. Pluto takes 248.4 years to orbit the Sun, spending 14 to 26 years in each sign. And the Moon's north node lasts approximately 18.6 years, 18.73 in this instance, with the moon spending about 18 to 19 months in each sign as it travels around the zodiac. Now, the moon's north node is very important because a lot of things that are lining up with the moon's north node per se are things that include building, real estate activity, silver prices, also follow a roughly 18.5 year cycle. But the moon's north node has been continuously exampled to be linked towards the real estate market. Okay, so that's important. Now, with each of these planets, if we go and take a look at this page here, which is astrological symbols and glyphs, we can see that each planet is associated with a glyph, and it's not vital, but it just makes life easier if you can try to memorize these glyphs and just try to memorize what they look like. So that way, when you go to planetary software, if you ever do in the future, you'll be able to quickly understand which one is which. Now, I'm not an expert at this. I haven't memorized these completely, but I have a rough idea on which one's which, generally speaking. So do yourself a favor and don't do what I didn't do and skip this process. Actually try to memorize these ones here. Okay, there's not too many to memorize, and just go through that. Okay, so now that we've got an idea on the glyphs for the planets, and we've got an idea on the actual planets themselves, we're just going to switch over to the zodiac signs now, because when we understand the planets and their glyphs, and then we understand the zodiac signs, which are 12 of them, we're then going to be able to read an ephemeris. So a zodiac is essentially a wheel which partakes or gives us a formation of 360 degrees, which measures from the Earth one revolution around the sun. Now, we always measure things from a geocentric perspective, so where the Earth is the center. We always measure things around the sun. I'll give you an example of what one of these looks like. So this here is a geocentric perspective of an ephemeris. And what we have here is we have Earth in the middle, then we have the sun, then we have Mercury, the moon, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, all sort of going out of that outer ring, okay? Now what we have here is we also have this circle here, which is 360 degrees. So it goes to 330 and then down to 0, or 360 degrees. And it starts off with Aries and goes to Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, and so forth. And what this does essentially is it measures time from the Earth's perspective, and we can see, or an astrologer can see, in your instance you'll be using an ephemeris, to see where the planets are in an ephemeris, to see where they are in their great cycle. So as we can see here, Neptune is currently at 355 degrees of the zodiac. That means in another roughly 5 degrees, it's going to start its cycle again and begin a new orbital period. Now, if we just head back, we will see the 12 zodiacs here. We have Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. And generally speaking, people will know which one of these they're born in. But we're not too interested in the sun sign right now. What we're more interested in is learning this so that we can read an ephemeris. So I'm going to switch over to the ephemeris very soon, but what you'll notice on the ephemeris is that we don't have, generally speaking, the wording of the zodiac sign. We're left with glyphs or signs, okay? So that's why it's important, if you're using a paper ephemeris, to just sort of either have this real handy with you, or know what the glyphs are and the signs are, okay? So this is an ephemeris, and this is for the year 2023. And I'm going to go down and just show you that this is what an ephemeris looks like. Now, if I zoom in, the ephemeris for January is broken down like this. We have our day, and in this instance, it started on Sunday 1st for 2023. We have our sidereal time. Then we have the moon, the sun, the moon, and then our various other planets. And then as we go towards the outer side, we also then have the day. So that way, if you're referencing from the left-hand side or the right-hand side, you can reference that day. Now, inside this, we have the sun and we have a sign. We have the sun and we have a sign. We have the moon and we have a sign. a sign, a sign. So you can see as the moon changes signs, you can see when Mercury or Mars or Venus changes signs, or Jupiter. You can see, for example, here, Jupiter is in 1 Aries. So if we go back here, we'll see this as the sign for Aries. And now if we go back to our chart here, sorry, our life ephemeris, we'll take this back to January 1. Set this to 11 a.m. So January 1, we were looking for Jupiter, and we can see that Jupiter has just entered. We'll go back, for example. We can see that Jupiter has just entered into the new sign of Aries. Okay, so that is pretty much what that is telling us here. Jupiter is now on Sunday the 1st at 1 degree 12 Aries. Now, if we break this down even further, we can see that we have, especially for the sun, we have the degree, and then the second one here is minutes, and then this third one is seconds. So you have degrees, minutes, seconds, degrees, minutes, seconds, degrees, minutes, seconds. Now, technically speaking, we should be working with all 3 angles. So we should know the degree, the minute, and the second. I generally tend to work with the degree and the minute. However, if you want to be just really simple and you just want to, the more finer in detail you put this, the greater accuracy of your forecasts or your understanding of when markets might turn. If you use a degree, in this instance, you have 11 degrees, 18 minutes, 12 degrees, 19 minutes, 13 degrees, 20 minutes. Let's say, for example, you thought that the market would turn at around 12 degrees. Well, you're pretty much giving yourself a clustering period of about 3 days, because you have the 11 degree 18, and that 11 degree moves into 12, and then that 12 then moves into 13. In this instance, if your calculation says that it's 12 degrees, and because you haven't taken into account the minutes or the seconds, it might be 12 degrees, 30 minutes. It might be 12 degrees and 1 minute. In this instance, if it's 12 degrees and 30 minutes, you could be looking for Tuesday to Wednesday. If it's 12 degrees and 1 minute, you'd be looking for Monday to Tuesday. You'd be looking for that time frame where the market would turn. So if you can work on getting an exact degree and minute, or even an exact degree, minute, second, that'll help just refine your study. Now, another thing about this, and you'll see that this is going to happen pretty much every month, every day for every month, is that we have this UT000. So 0000, that is midnight, essentially, UT. Now, what does that mean? That means if you're based in Sydney, Australia, that's 11 a.m. for you, okay? If you're based in the UK or any other time zone, can I change it here? Let's say, I don't know how the UK works. We got 1 a.m., so 1:30 a.m. I'll just change this back to 00, 12 a.m. So 1 a.m., okay, 1 a.m. London time. So you'll be working that, for example, on Sunday the 1st at 1 a.m. London time. This was at 10 degrees and 17 minutes. At 1 a.m. on Monday, it was at 11 degrees, 18 minutes. And that's how you do your calculation. As for Australia, it'd be 11 a.m. would be 11 degrees, okay? So that's just a handy way to just quickly convert your time zone to match this. Now, if we are using a computer ephemeris, we can simply change the time ourselves, okay? And as we change the time, you'll see that the moon, for example, focus on the moon because it's the fastest moving. Even in a day, it is going from the middle of one sign to the end of one sign. And then it's entering another sign, okay? So it's just left Aries, and it's moved into the next sign. All right, so let's move on. So now you understand how to read an ephemeris. You understand the planets. You understand the glyphs. You now need to know the aspects, okay? Now, the major aspects, especially the aspects that W. Gain would use, are conjunction, opposition, trine, square, sextile. And we've also got a semi-sextile, semi-square, and sesquiquadrate. Now, when we look at what these mean, there's two ways to look at it, okay? From a forecasting perspective and from an astrological perspective. If, for example, you have a conjunction, it means that both the planets are at 0 degrees of each other. And that is a 0 degree orb. It doesn't mean that they've just, it doesn't mean, let's go back. It doesn't mean that the moon is at, if I move this forward a little bit, it doesn't mean that the moon is at 0 degrees, okay? I think using Aries 1 would be the best example right now. Take this forward. Doesn't mean that the moon is at 0 degrees. Still can't get it. Oh yeah, 0 degrees, 35 minutes. Okay, it's a long-winded way to get an example. What it does mean though, and I'm going to now activate on my chart the conjunction. So let me just go ahead and turn on conjunction. What it means is that two planets are at basically 0 degrees of each other. So they're basically lined up from a Earth to that planet out, Earth to this planet out. So they are now in a line with each other, okay? Now when they're opposite, it means that one is on one side and the other is on the other side. So they're opposite of each other. So let's just turn on the opposite. Let's see if we can line up any right now. I'll show you what an opposite looks like. There we go. So we got the Earth here, we've got the moon over here, and we got Neptune over here. Now these two planets are technically opposite of each other, okay? Then you have trine and you have square. Now trine and square are pretty obvious. You've got a triangle and a square. So that means we have the sun and the moon. 1, 2, 3, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 signs away from each other. And then if we have a square, we now have 1, 2, 3 signs away from each other. So they're basically, in this instance, they're not just 3 signs, but they're also in the middle, because this Uranus and Venus are in the middle. They're basically 3 signs away from each other. Then we have a square here. So they're pretty close to the edge of this line and this line. And they are 1, 2, 3 signs away from each other. So we have 2 squares happening right now. We have no trines, we have 2 squares. All right, so let's go back and keep going. Why does this one keep popping up? So we have conjunction, which is they're pretty much in line with each other. Then we have opposite, which means the Earth is in the middle, one planet on one side, the other planet on the other side. Then we have trine, which means that they are 3 away from each other. So 3 zodiac signs away from each other. Then we have 4 zodiac signs, okay? This one would probably be 2. And then we have the others. Now, anyone who has done anything Gann-based before will know that these numbers and these angles are very important. You got 0 or 360 degrees. You got 180 degrees, 120 degrees, 90 degrees, 60, 150, 72, 30, 45, and 135. Definitely all very important. And if you were to look at anything from a Gann perspective, you would say, pretty much this is how Gann counted a lot of these dates and a lot of these times into the future. So now you understand pretty much what it means, okay? So if you move 180 days or 180 degrees into the future, you're basically oppositing where it was before, okay? So if there was a planetary alignment that occurred on X date, you move 180 degrees into the future, you're basically moving into an opposition of that, okay? Now, when you were to look at it from an astro perspective, because I said that there was 2 ways to look at it, you would say that there are 2 ways to look at this. You've got your easy and you've got your hard aspects. Your easy aspects are things that occur in trines. And you got 30, 60, 90, and so forth. Now we had the 30-degree semi-sextile here as a difficult aspect. However, for the sake of this example, we would say 60, 120, 72 are easy aspects. And then you have a morphing of the 30-degree aspect, where we have the 30 degrees, the 90 degrees, the 180 degrees. So we have 30 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, and these are called hard aspects. And generally speaking, that just means that if you were to look at your zodiac sign, for example, and I'll go into this in the future. If you were to be born, for example, in Aries, you would move forward a trine, okay? You would move forward 4 zodiac signs. In this case, you get to Leo. And this would be an easy aspect to you. What that generally means is that people who are born in Aries seem to get along with people who are born in Leo. And if you move forward 3 aspects again, you're going to move, 4 aspects again, you're going to move into Sagittarius. Now that would also mean that we have people who are in Aries, people who are in Leo, people who are in Sagittarius tend to find it easy flowing to get along with each other. So it's an easy aspect, okay? If you were to move forward 90 degrees, so we're moving down to basically Cancer, so we're moving forward 3 zodiac signs, this is a hard aspect. And if we would just look at someone's life, you would say that this is someone who's not likely to get along with you. Move forward again, and you will see that this is a very quick example of how this easy and difficult aspect recurs, okay? So now that we understand a simple flowing, especially if I was just use this website as an example, how to understand the signs and the planets, how to read Ephemeris, how to convert the Ephemeris, how to get a quick glimpse of the aspects and orbs. Actually, I haven't explained orbs, so let me explain an orb. An orb is simply a period of time before or after when an event is likely to occur. So in this instance, if we were to have a conjunction appearing at 0 degrees, we have an orb period of plus or minus 8 degrees. Now let's go back to this. This would essentially mean, I'm actually going to turn off, I'm going to turn on Mercury, Venus, and Mars. So Mars is down here. I'm going to now turn on conjunction. And I'm going to move back in time just so I can get this conjunction occurring. Now you see how we have this period where we get the lighter color, we get the darker color, and then goes lighter and then off. This is essentially an applying and separating orb period. This period right here, where it's the darkest color, we can see that we have 294 degrees on both Mercury and Venus. That means they're pretty much exactly conjunct each other, okay? And as we move away, we're separating. So we have 294 and 295 degrees, and then we're out of orb. Now, according to this website here, it would say that they're going to give it an 8-degree variance. That means from 200, so 200, let's just go back a little bit, 286. Okay, so from about 277 to 283, they're saying that this would be considered a conjunction. And then as time moves forward, we get our conjunction, and now they're now saying that it would still be, that's a bit too far out, probably about here, it'd still be considered a conjunction. But based on our software, I use a bit of a more accurate aspect here where we have an orb period of about 2 degrees. If I was to change this to 8, so now I've changed that to 8 degrees, we can see that the orb period lasts a lot longer now. This whole period actually, they're basically in orb the whole time. And that's basically because of the speed of the planet there. So it goes into orb, goes conjunct, and then as Mercury goes retrograde, see by the R, retrograde essentially means that from the appearance of the Earth out into the stars, Mercury tends to go backwards, but it's not actually going backwards. It's just another planet. In this instance, possibly the Earth is moving faster. Another planet's moving faster. That's pretty much all it is. Now let's see if we can get that conjunction of Venus to Mars. And because we're using an 8-degree variance, it's going to stay for a little while. Then we got the fast-moving planet, which is Mercury. So anyway, I think 8 degrees is way too far. I'd like to stick it back to 2. I don't think it's going to give us more accurate and more defined time periods. So 147, 148, and basically you'll get your exact conjunction eventually. It's probably right here. Probably right here. So at 1:29 a.m. July 28, 2023, we had probably our most accurate conjunction. Okay, so my advice would be not to use an 8-degree orb. I think it's too much, and probably to go something like 2 degrees. I think that's going to give you, in this instance, if we're looking at trying to understand when forecasting tops and bottoms are going to occur, we'd want to be doing it definitely from a tighter spread. So now that we know that we have the ephemeris, we have our zodiac signs, we have our degrees, I'm going to talk about ingressing. Okay, so I'm going to use the sun for ingress. Now, ingressing essentially means when a planet moves into a new zodiac sign. So if we move forward in time, let's go back to Aries, actually. I think it's easier. Aries generally starts on March 21st. So we're at 358 degrees right now. If I move forward, so it's March 31st, 21st, why I keep saying 31st. And right here at 7:36 a.m., and that was about Brisbane time, we had a longitude and latitude of 0 degrees. That means that the sun has now entered 0 degrees of the zodiac sign, so it's completed its full revolution and is now sitting at 0 degrees Aries. If I go forward just a little bit, we're now at 0 degrees Aries and 1 minute, essentially. So we're now going to go forward all the way through to April 21. And we'll see that April 21, we have moved from 29 degrees and 34 minutes. And let's move this forward. Once it gets to 60, we're at now 30 degrees, okay? So I've now moved from 0 degrees or 360 degrees to 30 degrees. And as this occurs on April 20th, 2023, at 6:18 p.m., the sun has ingressed into a new sign. And this is going to occur every single month at around, roughly, depending on how many days are in the month, roughly I'd say probably the 19th to the 23rd of each month, the sun is going to ingress into a new sign. Okay, so that is what ingressing is. If you were to add on Mercury and do the exact same thing, Mercury has gone retrograde, and right now it is ingressed on the 4th of October into a new sign. Okay, so it is now in Libra. So that is ingressing, and ingressing is important, and you'll learn why in the future. So now that you understand what ingressing is, you'll learn why in the future it is important. Okay, so now that we've got ingressing done, let's take a look at clusters. I've got a few more things I want to show you. However, we will put on some more planets. Now, for someone who has been studying again or whatnot, Pluto and Neptune were not really discovered when Gan was doing astrology. So you can put these in, but there's no real research from a Gan's perspective on these 2 planets. I believe Gan only went out to Uranus. My memory serves me right. Then we're going to put on sextile and opposition. Now, just like Christ analysis, you can get a clustering in planetary analysis. Now, clustering will occur. I'm going to create my orb period just because I want to give you possibly a simpler example. Clustering will occur when we get a number of these planets forming aspects at the same time. Sometimes we'll get more aspects than others, like probably right here, around 24th to 27th of September. And if we go back, I really should probably decrease my orb period now. As we go around, we basically want to see where most of the planets would be clustering at the same time. So probably 30th of June we're getting Saturn trine Mercury, trine the Sun, sextile Jupiter, Mercury and Jupiter also sextile. And then we got Venus square Uranus, and we got Sun conjunct Mercury. Now, there's no guarantee that anything would happen at this time period, but if we were, for example, to look up what occurred on 30th of June, 30th of June, right here, this would be the time period when all the planets were clustering in one way or another, forming a series of aspects, more so than other times, and that occurred probably roughly around near the low. If we can see what happened around maybe the 14th of July, we might be able to see if there's any clustering that was occurring. So let's move forward to the 14th of July. Nothing was occurring around 14th of July. All we had was Sun sextile Uranus, or Uranus, however you want to say it. And we also have the 17th of June. Let's go back to the 17th of June. And we had sextile Jupiter Saturn and Mercury Venus. So we had two planets clustering there, or basically when we look at the cluster, we want to get basically three planets as ideal, forming an aspect to each other. But sometimes you can get planets forming aspects. Geez, if we basically put all of them on, we can definitely get more planets forming an aspect. Obviously that is a very brief and quick example. There is a much better study, but I'm just showing you what the aspect is and how you would basically apply it. All right, so now that we've got an understanding of the ephemeris, there are other ways to look at an ephemeris, and one of them is the ephemeris chart. Now, if we think about this as a wheel from 0 degrees to 360 degrees going down instead of going around, we can basically see the same thing. We can see that in this instance, Jupiter was 29 Pisces or 1 Aries. This is this period right here, 29 Pisces to 1 Aries. And Jupiter, if I actually maybe go back in time, Jupiter goes down and then it goes retrograde where it goes up. It goes down. So it's down here at 10 Taurus, then it goes 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then down again. Each time it goes up, it's going retrograde. So if I just put Jupiter on the chart right now, and we just swing it around, we'll see that it sort of slows down and goes backwards. Then goes, I'm going backwards in time right now. Goes forward, slows down, then goes backwards. Goes backwards. Goes backwards. That's basically this motion happening right here. So what happens when we get this period right here, where the chart is showing that Jupiter is now moving through the sun? Well, we can actually see what that is by popping on our aspects. And it appears that we have a conjunction, okay? We have a conjunction of Jupiter and the sun. And then if we go over here, we have a conjunction of Jupiter and the sun. It's basically, they conjunct each other. Here's one here, we have conjunction of Mars and the sun. This one here, we have conjunction of Mars and the sun still, which is up here. I'm just reading it down here. The black one, we have conjunction of Saturn and the sun. This is basically another way to read the chart. And it also gives us a quicker way of reading the chart because we're not having to basically move forward in time the planets to see which ones are occurring and which ones are clustering. We can basically get a list here of when the conjunctions are happening. And if we have this information, we can print it. But what I want to do, which I thought it would give me the information, save planets, save aspects to clipboard. Basically want to open this up, paste it in, and then I have now my dates here of when the market might be influenced by the Sun conjunction Mars. It's going to enter with an odd period. It's going to hit that period exactly, and then it's going to exit. So in this instance, we have entry is basically what they call in astrology applying. And then we have the exact hit. And then we have exit, which is in Australia, they were called separating. So we're moving towards the event, and then we're moving away from the event. We're moving towards the event, then we're hitting the event, and then we're moving away from the event. So we're applying, we're hitting, and we're separating, okay? Now, if we were to basically pop on a ton of planets, give that a second to load, and I'll give you another example of why this chart could be beneficial as well. It's just calculating the planets right now. All right, Venus almost done. I thought I had these calculated before. I'm going to turn off the aspects for a second once it's finished loading everything, because then I'll show you basically the time or length it takes for planets to occur in an orbital period. You'll see that Mercury takes 88 days, Venus takes 225 days, Mars takes 687 days, and so forth, with Pluto taking 248 years to complete its orbital period. Okay, taking a little longer than expected, apologies. All right, let's turn off this. So now what we have here is we basically have, do I have Pluto on here? Because I'm going to give you that example right here, Pluto. So we see that as markets move from 0 degrees to 360 degrees, some of them occur much faster than others. For example, the sun starts at 0 degrees Aries and then ends at 29 or 30 degrees Pisces right here. It takes 1 year to complete its orbit. Then you have Mercury, which took 88 days. Obviously, this is heliocentric perspective. Geocentric, sorry. I'm going to change it to heliocentric to give you that example. When we have heliocentric, we don't get that period where it goes backwards and forwards. So it's going to go from 0 degrees Aries to 26 degrees Pisces. That's basically the 1st of April, and this is the 2nd of January. So basically 88 days or so to cross that period. Then as you see the slopes start to get longer in time, this is when the planets start getting slower. And if we look at this blue one right here, I'm wondering if I can change its color. Cannot, unfortunately, or at least don't want to waste my time on it. We can see that this blue one right here takes a very, very, very long time to go from 0 degrees to 0 degrees. And it's basically telling us that in this time period since 1900 to 2023, it has not completed one orbit yet. This one right here, this blue one, Pluto, it has traveled all the way down here, but it has not completed its orbit. It's only basically gone from 75 degrees, so over here at the time period, down to 300 degrees, 299, basically 300 degrees in over 120 years. So it's still got a little bit more until it gets back to 0 degrees Aries. And then once it gets back to 0 degrees Aries, it's got even more time to get back down to 70 degrees. So it's got a very long orbital period. The next one that we see would be possibly the blue one or the black one. Flatter the better. There's Saturn and then Jupiter. And then as we scroll in, we'd have the faster moving planets, we'd have Mars, and then Venus and Mercury. Okay. That is from a heliocentric perspective. Going to geocentric, we now include the sun. Let's turn back on the sun. And then we can see that it takes 365 days to complete one orbit, okay? Aries to Aries. Okay? And then so we've moved from a circle to a chart, which tells us that orbital period, and we can compare the orbital periods. If we have this software, we can also save the aspects and know when they're going conjunct, etc. Trying to possibly find an easier way to get those clustering periods. Then we can move to our chart. And in this instance, we're using planetary decans And it's basically a standard ephemeris broken down into 12 parts. So now instead of going around an ephemeris, trying to pinpoint when things would occur based on a date, we're now basically looking at those 12 zodiac signs going across the chart. So this is when the sun is in Aries. So the yellow one's when the sun is in Aries. Basically this 30-degree period here. And then we have when the sun moves into Taurus, which is this 30-degree period here. And it occurs all the way across until it goes back to, until it ingresses, I should say, if you want to keep it technical, back into that 0 degrees Aries. Okay, so this is when it moves from Pisces to Aries, okay? So sun is in Pisces, sun is in Aries. Now, as I highlight over these, you'll see that we have 3 periods within the one zodiac sign. So if I use possibly this black one here for ease of eyes, they're going to let me go over it. Get here. We can see that it is changing to a yellow color. Now this is basically a decan within the zodiac sign. What is a decan? Well, it basically divides this period into 3 parts, and each part is roughly 10 degrees in time, okay? So the first decan is 10 degrees into the sign. The second decan is from basically 10 degrees and 1 minute, basically out to 20 degrees. And then the third decan, sorry, is that third period of 10 degrees, which goes from the 20 to 30. And then it repeats again. Now, why is that important? Well, generally speaking, you might find that things occur in certain decans of the zodiac sign, more so than just looking at the zodiac sign itself. For example, you might find that if you were to do some research on this, you might find that the market tends to bottom around the third decan of a specific zodiac sign, more so than the first decan. And the reason why that might be important is because it can help you narrow down the time frame that you're looking for. If you find that the market bottoms around the third decan, then it's going to narrow down your time frame for an orb period in your market theory from, in this instance, 13th of September to the 23rd of September. And that means instead of looking at a whole month's time period, because you're saying, oh, when something happens in Virgo, then I might actually have an issue where the market's probably going to bottom or top out. You've now narrowed down your time frame where when something happens in the third decan or between the 14th to the 23rd, then the market is likely to show some resistance or show some signs of change in trend. Okay, so what we've basically done here is now taking a look at the zodiac sign in a circle, finding out what degrees they're occurring, moving those into a chart so we can see where the actual planets are over a long-term view, and then placing just that one of those planets onto the chart and then looking at a decan. Now, if I was to look at, for example, Pluto, which takes 240 years, what you'll get is this sort of period here, where, and this is a good example of possibly looking at retrograde motion, where the market does seem to go through a retrograde period. We're here where it goes into purple, then it goes from purple to red, goes retrograde for a little while, ends the retrograde period, heads back into the red, goes retrograde once more, and then heads back into the red again, which is just basically a sign of a change of sign. So Cancer, Leo, Cancer, Leo, Cancer. So you'll see on my chart where I have basically under the current position, I got planetary decans, and I can see Pluto in Leo, and we're looking basically at the sun sign there. But we're looking for Pluto in Leo. If I go back in time, it then says Pluto in Cancer, and then it says Pluto in Leo, Pluto in Cancer, Pluto in Leo, Pluto in Cancer. And that's basically as it goes retrograde, moves between the signs. And then it happens here where it goes from Pluto in Leo to Pluto in Virgo, goes retrograde again because it's moving from red, it's trying to get into this one here, It's moving retrograde again, trying to get in, moving retrograde again, trying to get in. Now, if we look at what that happens, if I was to pop this on, let's see if I can get it. Oh, let's go backwards in time. Retrograde, retrograde. I want it to just sort of go, yeah, see right here. You see how we're ingressing into a new sign, and then it's going into a new sign, and then retrograding backwards, going into a new sign, retrograding backwards, going into a new sign, retrograding backwards. That's basically what's happening here, where it's going into a new sign, retrograding backwards, going into it again, retrograding backwards, going into it again, retrograding backwards. And then basically the last period, where it's the smallest period, is when it's almost out of that sign, and when it retrogrades backwards, it only retrogrades just briefly, or a day or two or whatnot. In this instance, because we're talking about Pluto, we've got from April 15th to June 11th. If we take a look at smaller planets, which I'm not too sure will give us the same effect. I want to go maybe one out further. Basically here, we moved into Sagittarius, and then we retrograded out of Sagittarius, back into Scorpio, and then back into Sagittarius, okay? And if we do our exact same thing as before, where we have our decans, we're looking at those decans, and you can see even as we go in through the decans, it's basically retrograding between the decans as well. You can see those change of colors there occurring as I move through the decans. So it's interesting to see and interesting to know, no doubt, and hopefully will help you. So how do we calculate, and this will be the final bit of this video, how do we calculate the period between two planets? Well, basically, what you want to do is you want to find your leading planet. In this instance, we're trying to find out the distance between Pluto and Mars, because, for example, we want to know when they go conjunct. Well, we would, first of all, you could use the ephemeris. I'm not going to use the ephemeris because the ephemeris is going to be, in my instance, too complicated because I've got a simpler way of doing it. But you could find out basically the moon and Venus are going to be conjunct in basically 9 degrees, okay? Let's move back. So we're not going to use the ephemeris for this one, but we want to know when Pluto and Mars are going to be conjunct. And we're going to be doing that in a form of degrees, not in form of time, okay? So we want to know how many degrees until they become conjunct. Basically, we want our leading and lagging planet that we're referencing. In this instance, it's going to be Mars and Pluto. Our leading planet in this instance is going to be Pluto because it's just the one in front. And then our lagging planet is going to be Mars because it's just behind. How do we know it's in front or behind? Well, it's further into the zodiac sign than the other one. Now, if we go forward in time, we will see soon that now Mars is leading and Pluto is lagging. So there'd be the leading minus the lagging. Let's go forward in time. Alrighty. So we have our leading planet and we have our lagging planet. We have got 305 degrees on the leading planet and we have 281 degrees on the lagging planet. So in 24 degrees, give or take a 2-degree orb, Mars and Pluto are going to be conjunct. Again, conjunct from the Earth point of view is basically when you have the Earth, the next planet, and the next planet sort of all lining up in the same line. So now that we've got a time period of 24 degrees, without taking into account retrograde motion, we basically want to move forward in time 24 degrees. Now, because both planets are going to be moving forward in time, a 24-degree period is not going to be basically 24 days or whatnot. In this instance, Pluto might actually go retrograde and it might come back in time. So then therefore, the 24 degrees might actually occur faster. But we want to tighten this until they both get to basically 305 based on Pluto's current, or it's now 306 based on Pluto's current orb period, so longitude period. So let's move forward. And now we're getting to the orb period where they're now within 2 degrees of each other. And then we are now both at 306 degrees and they are now conjunct. So we have the Earth, we have Mars, we have Pluto, all conjunct within Aquarius. So these two are now in Aquarius conjunct. And they are conjunct. In that instance, they were conjunct within 0.2 degrees. So it's definitely within our orb period of 2 degrees. They're conjunct within 1 degree. And now they're exactly conjunct. Well, I shouldn't say exactly. Almost exactly conjunct. There we go. At 12th of January 2028, Mars and Pluto will be exactly conjunct. Okay, 0 degrees each. They're exactly conjunct each other. Now, let's just say, for example, Mars is now ahead of Pluto. We want to know how many degrees until Mars and Pluto are going to be conjunct again. Now, because Mars is a forward-moving planet or a faster-moving planet, we would want to use Mars. So we want to use Pluto again as our leading planet because we would need Mars to come back around. We need to know how many degrees it's going to take. So what we need to do is we need to take, basically, we have 306 degrees here, and we have Mars at 313 degrees. We need Mars to get to 360 degrees. So we need Mars to move from here to here, and we need it to move around again. So to calculate it today, we'd basically say 360 degrees minus 313. That's going to give us 47 degrees. So Mars has to move 47 degrees to get to 0 degrees. And then we have 313 degrees plus 47 degrees, which is 360 degrees to get basically back here, okay? So then we want 306 degrees. 306 minus 313, negative 7 degrees. Perfect. So there's a 7-degree difference between 313 to 306. So now we have 360 degrees minus 7. So Mars has to move another 353 degrees to get back here. Now that is only saying that if Pluto does not move, but Pluto is going to move. So basically in 353 degrees, we basically want to know where Pluto is going to be at that time. Because it's such a fast-moving, slow-moving planet, basically the same point anyway. So that was probably a good example because that was easy. So that's all I have for this one right here. If there's any updates or anything else that I want to add to this, I will go ahead and basically make a follow-up video to this. But I think that pretty much summarizes the important information you need to know on how to read an ephemeris, understanding the planets, knowing the zodiac signs, basically learning the aspects, or at least quick learning them, calculating the distance between two planets, learning ingresses, and learning clusters. Again, this was not any form of trading video or trading advice or anything like that. This is purely basic topics on the principles of geocosmic studies, okay? Now we'll go into more geocosmic studies principles in the near future, but I hope that this just gives you the groundbreaking starting point, which you'll be able to build upon from here.